Good morning, pre-K. Happy Friday. Today is Friday, March 19th, 2021. Today will be the last day that we will be doing something on the water unit. I hope you had a fun time learning about water. Next week, we're going to be starting a new unit about plants, which is great because plants need water. Today, we're going to be reading a story, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Maybe you guys have seen the movie. This is the book we're going to be reading because today I want to talk to you about a big word, meteorologist. Does anybody know what a meteorologist is? A meteorologist is the person that you see on the news reporting about the weather. They use predictions, which was another word we learned about. Remember when we were doing the sink and float experiment, we made predictions, which were guesses, but smart guesses, on whether something was going to sink or float. A meteorologist uses different machines and data, which is information they collect, and they figure out what's going to happen with the weather. Is it going to be cloudy? Is it going to be sunny? Are we going to get any precipitation, which could be rain and snow, sleet? So we are going to be reading Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which is a little silly because it can't rain meatballs, but it's a really great book as we're talking about meteorologists. So it says, we were all sitting around in the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mom was squeezing oranges for juice. Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we could each eat, and Grandpa was doing the flipping. Making those pancakes. Who likes pancakes? I do. Seconds later, something flew through the air, headed down the kitchen ceiling, and landed right on Henry. What happened? What is that? Not the pancake. After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed, even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry. That night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tall-tale bedtime story he'd ever told. Across an ocean, over lots of huge bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay the tiny town of Chew and Swallow. So he's telling them a make-believe story. In most ways, it was very much like any other tiny town. It had a main street lined up with stores, houses with trees and gardens around them, a schoolhouse, about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs. But there were no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything that everyone ate came from the sky. Could you imagine you sitting outside and saying, I wonder what's for breakfast. I wonder what the sky is gonna give me. It's kind of silly, right? Whatever the weather served, that was what they ate. But it never rained, it never snowed, and it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green peas. And sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. How silly is that? The people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would even hear prediction for the next day's food. See? A prediction. When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, their cups and glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way, they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, and there usually were, the people took them home and put them in their refrigerators in case they got hungry between meals. So there they are, catching all the food. That guy's catching juice. She's catching the drumsticks of chicken. Over here, they're eating pie. And over here, it looks like it's raining pancakes. The menu varied. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny side up eggs moved in, followed by pieces of toast. Butter and jelly sprinkled down for the toast. And most of the time, it rained milk afterwards. You see the squirrels eating too. For lunch one day, frankfurters, which are hot dogs, already in their rolls, blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles an hour. There were mustard clouds near, then the wind shifted to the east and brought it in the baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off the meal. It's a lot of different food coming from the sky, huh? Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times with occasional ketchup. Periods of peas and baked potatoes were followed by a gradual clearing with a wonderful Jell-O setting in the west. There's big Jell-O. The sanitation department of Chew and Swallow had a rather unusual job for sanitation department. It had to remove the food that fell on the houses and sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned things up after every meal and fed all the dogs and cats. Then they emptied some of it into the surrounding oceans for the fish and the turtles and the whales to eat. The rest of the food was put back into the earth so that the soil would be richer for people's flower gardens. So that's what the sanitation workers, they have like a big fork and knife, and they have to clean all that up. They feed the animals in the water, and then they put the rest in the ground to help things grow. Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worse. It says spaghetti ties up town. One day there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day long. So they're holding their nose because that kind of cheese is smelly. The next day there was only broccoli, all overcooked. Yuck. And the next day there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. Uh-oh, that's not yummy. Another day there was pea soup fog. No one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal that got stuck in the fog. They can't see anything, everything's green. This is a long page. The food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. The people were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. One Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread and rolls all day long into the night. There were soft rolls and hard rolls, some with seeds and some without. There was white bread and rye and the whole wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they had ever seen bread and rolls before. It was a terrible day. Everyone had to stay indoors. Roofs were damaged. Sanitation department was beside itself. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean up, and the sea was full of floating rolls. Like the bread just floating in there. To help out, the people piled up as much bread as they could in their backyards. The birds picked at it, but it just stayed there and got staler and staler. That's when the bread gets really hard. There was a storm of pancakes one morning and downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because its weight. So they had to close the school. Can you imagine syrup falling on our school? Lunch one day brought 15 inches drifts of cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick. and the day ended with a stomachache. Oh no. There was an awful salt and pepper wind, accompanied by an even worse tomato tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running to avoid the tomatoes. The town was a mess. There were seeds and pulp everywhere. Ugh. Something's going on. The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses had been badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up and there was no more school for children. So a decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. So now everyone is saying they have to move out. They can't live there anymore. It's too dangerous. The people glued together the giant pieces of stale bread, sandwich style with peanut butter, took the absolute necessities with them, and set sail on their rafts for a new land. So here they got all the stuff together, and now they're leaving. After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves out of it. So look, they used that stale bread, that hard bread, to build houses. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in the new land. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at the supermarket. They found it odd that food was kept on shelves, packaged in boxes, cans, and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked and was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again, and nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what happened to it. They were too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the very end of Grandpa's story. I remember his goodnight kisses. Man, that Grandpa gave a good night story, right? The next morning, we woke up to see snow falling outside the window. We ran downstairs for breakfast and ate it, a little faster than usual, so we could go sledding with Grandpa. It's funny, but even as we were sliding down the hill, we thought we saw a giant pat of butter at the top, and we could almost smell mashed potatoes. So now they're pretending the snow is mashed potatoes and the sun is butter. The end. Isn't that a cute story? Could you imagine if it was raining meatballs and hamburgers and butter and syrup and pancakes? It was cool, but then it got a little dangerous, so that's why people had to move out of the town. So today I want you to be a meteorologist. That is your challenge. I want you to look out the window, or you can always take mommy or daddy's phone if you can ask permission. They have a weather app on their phone, so you could see what the temperature is, and you can jot it down. Write what the temperature is, what the sky looks like, if there's any precipitation, if it's windy, if there's clouds out, whatever. You're going to be a meteorologist, and you're going to look outside and see the weather and record it. Then you're going to make a prediction, just like a meteorologist does. They always say on the news, they don't just give you one day of weather. They don't say today the weather is going to be 45 degrees and sunny. They also give you a prediction of what the next day. So your job is also to make a prediction of tomorrow, meaning Saturday's weather. Do you think it's gonna rain tomorrow? Do you think it's gonna be sunny? Do you think it's gonna be chilly? Do you think it's gonna be warmer? Whatever you want, what you could even guess what the temperature might be, and jot it down. And then you see Saturday, if you were right, wrong, doesn't matter, it's just a prediction. And I want you to also be safe and have fun this weekend, okay? And next week we will be starting the plant unit, so get excited. That's a lot of stuff that we get to do, all right? Have a good weekend, bye.